Middle East peace talks are at a critical stage this weekend. Israel's moratorium on settlements expires in a few hours, so will the talks collapse? And all this was on the mind of Queen Rania of Jordan when we sat down to talk this week. She was in New York for the UN General Assembly. Jordan, along with Egypt, are the only two Arab countries which have made peace with Israel. And this queen, a mother of four, is on a campaign to promote moderate voices in the Arab world and to counter the extremists. Your Majesty, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you, Christian.
There is, as you know, a peace process in place right now. Everybody's waiting to see whether the Prime Minister of Israel keeps the moratorium on and whether the Palestinian president stays at the talks. Do you think he should stay at the talks?
Absolutely.
Moratorium or not?
Well, that's something to be discussed. I know that there's a lot of cynicism, and I know that a lot of people don't believe that it's going to happen. And it's not easy. If it was easy, it would have happened by now. But what's very important to emphasize is why this peace process is important, why we mustn't let cynicism or pessimism just dismiss the whole process. And if you look at the religious situation and what we're seeing here, the tensions that exist, I'm not saying that the Middle East problem, Israelis and Palestinian issue, is the one that created religious extremism. Religious extremism would have existed anyway, but extremists have done a damn good job of using this cause to amplify their message, to try to reach the masses. And we need to realize that when there's a population that is living under occupation, where there's no justice, where they can't send their children to school, where mothers have to deliver on checkpoints, and on the other side, where Israelis feel that they have to build a bubble, they have to build a wall in order to exist safely because they live in such a hostile environment. That is an explosive situation that has repercussions not only on our region, but on our entire world. And we see those, even the debates that are going on in the States. So we have an extremely high stake and vested interest in seeing these negotiations move forward. In terms of the settlements that you were asking me about, whether there's the moratorium continues or not, what matters to me is what actually happens on the ground. If both sides are still talking and in the spirit of peace, these settlements are not expanded upon, then I think both sides need to be flexible. As long as they continue to talk, we need to see results. The Palestinian people and the Israeli people need to see change, tangible change in their lives very soon.
President Obama figures very strongly in this Middle East peace process, of course. He's brought the two sides together. Unfortunately, Pew polls and others now show his popularity dipping in the Islamic world, including in Jordan. What are your thoughts on that?
Simple. Let's see what happens with if we achieve success with this round of Middle East talks, then let's check his popularity ratings after that. I think they'll skyrocket. You
mentioned how this extremist ideology is even coming to play in the United States. You've seen the reaction and the fallout from the Islamic Center, but it goes broader than that. Do you see a sort of a dangerous Islamophobia in the United States? How do you assess what's happening here?
Well, it just really surprised me how inflamed this issue became. What really should be driving this debate is what is the road to reconciliation. At the end of the day, this is a center that is about religious harmony. It's about tolerance. If people understand that this is a center that does not play in the hand of the Bin Ladens of this world, but rather confronts them and undermines them.
But do you worry that people here sometimes confuse Bin Laden with Islam in general?
Absolutely. I think the major failure that that's going on is an inability or refusal to make a distinction between the extremists, like the Bin Ladens of this world, and the rest of the Muslims. So for me, Bin Laden doesn't represent me. He doesn't represent millions of people, millions of Muslims around the world. And I think that that's one of the worst and cruelest legacies of 9/11, is the fact that it's changed our hearts. It's made people more fearful of people of other religions or people who look different or dress different. And it's so contradictory to the most beautiful values of the United States. People look at the United States as a leader in terms of religious tolerance and freedom of worship. Now, the people of America need to decide, do they want to continue to play this leadership role to the rest of the world? Because even the Arab world, even the Muslim world, we look up to the United States when it comes to freedoms.
Then how does the Muslim world reclaim that moderate center to allay the fears here?
I think the Muslim world has to speak out more. moderates in general have to speak out more. And also, when they speak, there needs to be people listening on the other side, because this is a debate that affects how the future generations think and feel.
It's the UN General Assembly, and you're here in part because of the Millennium Development Goals. Now, for a lot of people, that's jargon, but what do the MDGs actually aim for?
Well, in the year 2000, world leaders came together and they made 8 promises, dealing with maternal health, child mortality, education, gender equality, climate change, cutting down poverty. There has been some progress made, but it's been uneven. I think the food crisis, the economic crisis, the climate crisis, all those have meant that in many cases we've limped rather than leaped. So we have to redouble our efforts to make sure that we reach these goals.
In the 10 years since 2000, what has been achieved on eradicating extreme poverty? That was one promise.
Yes.
Making universal primary education accessible, empowering women.
Right. Education and empowerment of women are 2 that I'm concerned about, because if we reach those 2, they underpin success for all the other goals.
Many of the reports about the Arab world say that one of the reasons it lags behind the rest of the developing world is because it disempowers half its population, i.e. the women.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. I think, when you look at the Middle East and North Africa region, we're one of the biggest spenders on education. And in most countries, there is gender parity in terms of education. So even across 12 of the Arab states, you have just as many girls as boys going to school, and in many cases, many more women graduating from university than men. But the problem is that although we're making these investments in women, we're not reaping the benefits because they're not going into the workplace.
Do you get pushback from some of the more Islamic party members, for instance, the Islamic groups in Jordan?
Not necessarily Islamic, because Islam does not say that women shouldn't work.
No, it doesn't, but some of the political types
But there are certain conservative mindsets that think that it's either or. Either you work or you have a family, you can't do both. We're still at a very low level in terms of women's female participation. But women are proving themselves in the business sector. We have women in the army, we have women in the security forces, we have female judges, entrepreneurs, all over. But it's going to be incremental, and sometimes it's generational. You can't have, the Western way of doing things can't be our way of doing things.
Your Majesty, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Christian.